Hello everyone and welcome to yet another full card preview and predictions video with 138 MMA. This video I'm going to break down Bellator 287, the entire card, starting with the early fights all the way up to the main event of the evening. This is an interesting card. There's some fun ones on here, some good bets to be placed. And if this is your first time finding the channel, I'm glad that you found us. Welcome to the channel. If you are a returning viewer, hey, welcome back. Glad you made it back again for yet another Bellator breakdown. This one here, I've got a couple of fights on here we're going to breeze through early, but as we get into the card a little bit more, there are some more interesting matchups that I think that you guys are going to really enjoy. So stay tuned, and here they come.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, 138 MMA proudly brings to you the hottest picks in the world!
You guys think that I didn't do my research on every fight on this card, so I will let you know that I did do my research on these cards, and I didn't, or on these fights particularly, and I didn't just pick this as the 3 squash matches just because of the odds. I did the research, realized that it's not worth me breaking down each fight individually, so I'm going to quickly go over these here. Stephen Hill should win without any trouble. He's fighting a short notice replacement. His original opponent had backed out. This guy here has a loss to the original opponent. He also has a win, but he has a loss against the original opponent. The dude's like a 500 fighter, kind of just looking like he's going to stay there the rest of his career. He's like 8-6, so a little better than 500, I guess. Doesn't really put up any resistance. Stephen Hill should get the win pretty easily. He's a very well-rounded fighter. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and boxing background. Top-level guy, or not top-level yet, but top-level prospect. So on his way there, shouldn't be a problem. Luke Trainer fighting Lucas Alcina, I think is how you say that. Luke Trainer's pretty darn good. Good striking. Kind of a hot prospect coming up as well. Had one hiccup in his career so far. Not really a big deal. They're trying to get him back on track here on Bellator. He's fighting a guy who's far past his prime, undersized in comparison. Basically, Luke Trainer's getting fed somebody to get him going back in the right direction. He's a charismatic fellow. And his striking is pretty darn fun to watch. He'll snap up a front kick to your face, something like that. He does well with what he does. Luke Trainer should get the win, no problem. He's of these three, I guess he'd be my least confident, but still, it's pretty safe. Oleg Popov, he should get the win here. He's fighting guys in his 40s. Looks, as of his last fight, looks very out of shape. Still, he's on a tidy little win streak, don't get me wrong, but they're over guys that are just not good. Low level. Guys with like 1 win, 4 losses, or 1-9, or like ridiculously bad. So for me, Oleg Popov is a guy who can come forward, get the takedown, maul you like a bear. He does have really good top pressure, really good grappling. Yeah, it should be an easy one here. He's only minus 600, so I mean that's almost playable, right? No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, all 3 of these guys should get the win. Some easy matchups for you to pick right out of the gate. If I were to say one would be an upset, maybe here, but even then, I'm reaching. I don't think it'll be any upsets. I wouldn't parlay everything with these. It is Bellator. Things happen. Crazy things come up. But yeah, pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Let's get into the fights where I'm going to actually break these down. So on to the next one. Looking at this one here, we have Nicolo Solli taking on Bourama Camara. I probably butchered those, but bear with me. Anyway, so Solli coming in 3-1-1, that additional 1 there being a no contest. 4-1 on the other side for Camara. This fight's an interesting one for me. Both guys relatively early in their MMA career. The height and reach advantage is going to come into play here, though. For Solli, he's not a small guy by any means, but he's going up against a guy who has a 2-inch reach or a 2-inch height advantage and a 6-inch reach advantage. This guy is a giant. So for Camara, he does use that length well. Now, with his striking, it's a bit awkward, and I think part of that is just because he's like a big, kind of gangly looking dude. Don't get me wrong, he's like fit and everything. He's not, not too awkward, but he's awkward in his strikes. They come out kind of strange. His length helps him though with the strikes because he's able to hit guys further away than they can obviously hit him. So he's able to use that length to help out in the striking, but his striking's so-so. But on the ground, he uses that length really well, and he actually strikes on the ground really well. So, but what I mean is striking is awkward. It's more on the feet. On the ground, he's able to wrap guys up pretty well. I mean, when your arms are, 79 inches in reach, you're able to get, kind of sneak some stuff in there that's a little harder for other guys to resist. And, you can obviously use the length there to skate out of some stuff and wrap some different things up, whatever. But so he uses that well. I've seen him go for some different submission holds from different angles that most guys could not do unless they had that natural gift there. So that does help him in this. Like I said, the striking on the feet it's kind of weird, but it seems effective. His last fight, he did knock a guy out. The guy kind of just crumbled. It was very strange, but it was a Bellator fight, so higher level than a lot of regional scene, I guess. Dropped the guy pretty easily. On the Solli side, though, I think if this fight stays on the feet, he does have the better looking striking. It'd be hard for him to, I'd say, get in over that 6 inches of reach. I don't know if you can realize how big of a reach advantage 6 inches is, but it is a big reach advantage. That's a half of a foot where one guy is in the danger zone and the other guy is not. So that does make it really tough for a guy like Solli to be able to get through that danger zone there. And that's just with the hands. If you're talking leg reach, I don't even know what that is, but it's probably ridiculous. But yeah, Solli has really good kicks. I do like those. He works them in well, goes to the leg. You can go to the body. You can go to the head with those kicks. And they're crisp. They're strong. Not slow by any means. So that's it. That could be a path to victory for him on the feet. On the ground, he does have decent jiu-jitsu, and he's always looking for the finish. He's not playing around, like just kind of hold you there, whatever. He's always looking for the finish. The problem is he's going against a guy who, when he's on the ground, is hard to really get a hold of. Now if Solli gets an arm, Camara is in trouble because the guy's got long arms, and it's hard to get them things out of there. But I don't really see that happening in this one. It's a close matchup. I wouldn't really lay any money on this one here. Both guys are still kind of relatively young in their career. I'm gonna lean the Camara side, but not heavily. I don't favor that matchup a ton. Like I said, the striking on the other side looks a little bit better. Just the reach advantage is gonna be hard to make up for. But if you guys got a good read on this one, let me know in the comments. But as for that, that's my pick. Okay, so in this next one here, guys, okay, I'm just gonna start off. I can't pronounce this name. I'm sorry. I look at that, I just can't even, I don't even know how to start. Oniszczuk something? I don't know. Kamil is what I'm gonna call him. I'm really sorry I can't pronounce that name. I speak English, and anything with Z, C, Z. I'm a dumb guy from the United States. I don't know. So, sorry. So, bear with me on this one. Kamil taking on Costello von Steenis. This matchup is a fun one. And when I looked at this match originally, both guys coming in 4-1. I thought this was, kind of like, okay, one guy's coming in 4-1, facing a bunch of bums. The other guy's a bad boy coming in facing a lot of like top-level Bellator guys, that being Van Steenis. I was actually slightly surprised because Kamil, the guy who I can't pronounce his last name, he actually has some decent-looking skills that I've seen from the regional scene. With that said, let's get into his. So he does have a 2-inch height advantage. Should help him a little bit. Nothing too crazy. I don't think that's really going to come into too big of a play here, but I mentioned it anyway. He has accurate striking. That's something that I really like about him. His strikes, they're not all over the place. They're not wild. He spends the time to put them where they need to be, and he counters well. That accurate countering style, that's something that can really win you a lot of fights. And he has some solid power with that as well. I know there's one more up there. We're going to come back to it. On the other side, Van Steenis here. Van Steenis has good grappling, good striking. I didn't put it up there, but he can work in the clinch well. He just mixes everything. He mixes his martial arts, which is what this is, MMA, mixed martial arts. This guy does it well. The best thing about him, though, he is a violent dude. Like, this guy does not screw around. He's trying to kill you in there. Maybe not really, but he does. I mean, he looks like it. The guy is a monster in there. And watching his fights, you see that. The guy does not slow down, does not back off, does not give you space. He just wants to go in there and cause damage. And that's a really good trait to have, because some guys like to treat this like a sport, and yes, it is a sport. But when you go in there and treat this like a murder, I just said that on here. I think I might get like demonetized or something like that. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, I don't make money yet, so I might get some sort of flag for that. Whoops. But either way, Van Steenis goes in there and he does not treat this like it's a sport. He treats this like he's trying to hurt somebody and he's trying to hurt them bad. So that is a good trait to have. And also, he's turned back some big names. I mean, he's beaten guys like Chris Honeycutt, which is a decent name, Mike Shipman, which is a decent name, Finn Fabian Edwards. He handed Fabian, I believe it was Fabian Edwards, he handed him his first loss. Yes, just had to check my notes. He does have one loss to Salter, John Salter, I believe, but still, not a big deal. When you're losing to John Salter, like, that guy's pretty up there in the Bellator rankings. He's turned back some guys, okay? So Van Steenis doesn't play around, comes in looking for violence. That's what he's going to do. Here's why I think he's going to win this one and why I think it's a decent play, because he's still only minus 250 or something like that. Kamil is a talented fighter, don't get me wrong, he counters well, but he tends to back straight up when he's pressured. And I saw this as recently as his last fight. He will back straight up when you come at him hard. Now, thankfully for him, the guy he was fighting was quite a bit shorter. Also, kind of like a decent fighter, but not great. He's fighting a guy that's going to come forward with reckless abandon, but also skill. And that's going to be trouble for him. So for me, Van Steenis is a pretty good play here. I like him a lot in this matchup. Could he lose? Could he get countered and put down? Yeah, totally. It's a fight. It's a Bellator fight. A lot of crazy stuff like that happens. A lot of underdogs end up pulling it off in Bellator fights. That's where you can't just play all the favorites. But I do like Van Steenis here. Should be a fun one. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let's go right on to the next one. Fun fight here between Yves Landu and Walter Cogliandro. Both guys 3-2 in their last 5 fights. This should be an interesting one. Both guys seem to have kind of the striking mindset when they come into a fight, and that is a good thing for this matchup and for the fans, because this is going to be a fun one. However, let me throw this at you. We've got Yves Landu. He's kind of a wild style kickboxer. Typically, that's not good. It means you can get countered pretty easily and get hit. It works for him. He does well. He comes in with tons of pressure right out of the gate. He does have good lateral movement, so if he does need to circle off, avoid takedowns, avoid strikes, he can do that well. And he has that power. He has a lot of flying knees that he throws, a lot of crazy... He just jumps a lot. He'll come in with flying roundhouse kicks, like whatever. Kind of a strange style. It's wild, like I said. But it does work. I forgot to close out that parenthesis. Bear with me on that one. Clearly, I'm just reading this for the first time over. But yeah, so that can be something that kind of makes for an interesting fight, is he's going to come through with this crazy stuff, and it makes it fun. When he lands, it's big, it's exciting, he'll knock you out, it looks good. But, you know, how long can a guy hold that up? So in this matchup, we're going to really see, because he's fighting a guy that has some good striking of his own, a guy that's not afraid to stand and trade. He'll go in there, throw hands with you, let you throw yours, come back with his, and his striking does look a little bit more crisp than you see from the Landu side. But Cogliandro, wow, that's a hard one. Cogliandro, something that he struggles with is he keeps the fights too close. I don't know if he just likes the back and forth fight or what, but even the fights that he wins, he keeps them like razor thin. I swear, this guy probably holds a record for the most split decisions in out of anybody. But like watching his fights, he'll let you throw yours, and he'll come back with his. He'll just kind of turtle up, and he'll let you come at him. On the other hand, we have a guy that does not let you come back afterwards. So we have Landu that he'll throw his, and if you didn't throw yours, he'll throw his again. If you don't throw yours right away, he'll keep throwing his. So for Cogliandro, I could see that being an issue. Maybe we see him try to work some takedowns in there, and if so, we have an interesting thing, because Landu does get taken down relatively easily from what I've seen in his fights, but he sweeps really well, and usually by the time the position hits the mat, he's already starting to sweep and taking that top position. He'll do it with different kinds of sweeps. The Kimura sweep is kind of his favorite, or at least from what I can tell, it's his go-to, and he does it pretty well. In this matchup, I just don't think Cogliandro he hasn't really fought the highest level of competition. They're not bad. It's not like he's beating just bums. Like, some of them are, but not all of them. But he just also, his style just doesn't match up well with a guy that's just going to throw wild shots, come in with big power, and then not let you strike back. Cogliandro will wait for you to let him strike back, and that's going to be an issue in this matchup. So for me, I edge Landu. I don't know that this is really like a lock by any means, but I do edge him there. Not somebody I'm betting the mortgage on, but yeah, not a bad one. I think if it does end on the Landu side, it's probably going to be by a knockout or TKO. On the other side, if it does end there, it's going to be probably a split decision, because that's what the guy does in every fight. But realistically, no, it'll probably go to the scorecards if on the Cogliandro side. Landu, if he wins, assuming he wins, like I'm saying, it will likely be a knockout. Let me know what you think. We've got more fights to break down. Let's roll right along. Okay, so here we have Chiara Penco taking on Manuela Marconetto. I think that's how you say that. For this matchup, we have one of these ladies that has a lot more experience than the other. The Penco side, she has quite a bit more experience. She is coming in 3-2 in her last 5 fights. But as you see on the other side, there's only a 3-1 up there, and that does not add up to 5. So what that means is this is her entire MMA record. So, at least as a pro. So for this matchup, we do have one of our ladies in this fight coming in with very little experience, but we'll see how much that matters in this fight. The 3-2 for Penco, she's fought varying levels of competition, so hard to really get a good read on where she actually falls in the spectrum. But as far as what I can say for her competition, when she's fought the step ups, it's kind of been a little tougher for her. She has some of the tools, but she might take a little while to get there to where she needs to be. She's not a finished product by any means, and that same can be said on the other side for Marconetto. Anyway, for this matchup for Penco, she's a very athletic female. There's plenty of videos or photos of her just like walking around on her hands and like standing on just one hand and doing all sorts of crazy stuff, backflips and things, like whatever. She's very athletic. Her strength and power to body weight ratio is there. The girl is very, very much a freak athlete, and that is a good thing to have in an MMA contest, because when skills are equal, athletics really take a big part. So for her, she'll have that to fall back on when necessary. The problem is in the training, sometimes that can be a detriment because you tend to lean on your athleticism rather than learn the skills properly. I don't know that that's her case. I just know from experience working with different people, for me personally, that happens with, when you're coming in and you do have an athletic advantage over someone or a disadvantage, and they will use their athletic advantage. It works both ways. It is an interesting thing, but in a fight, it does help her. Another thing, she does have good striking and good Brazilian jiu-jitsu. She doesn't really have much in the way of takedowns from what I've seen, or like at least good takedowns. She can do them, they're just not great. But when she does get taken down, she does have decent jiu-jitsu. But the problem is she's content to sit there and work it rather than try to get back to her feet. And if it's not working, that can be a big problem for her, because she will lay there and try to work for submissions and then just get ground out or controlled for minutes at a time, and that's a problem. But on the feet, she does have good range striking. So her strikes look good. She's obviously worked the bag a long time. She must have had quite a bit of kickboxing style training early on in her life, or at least either that or she's picked up on it really quick. But she does struggle at kind of the range that's not really striking range, but not quite the clinch. It's kind of like the muddied area, the in-betweens, if you will. There are in-betweens in a few different areas, and that's something that Marconetto, she does well. She does really well. She actually succeeds high in the in-betweens. So whether that's coming between the clinch and the striking range, or coming from the ground back to a clinch range or back to standing, she's good at just kind of scoring shots in the in-betweens. That's something that I do really like about her. She's also really hard to hold down. So in the event that Penco does get the takedown here, she will have to work hard for it. She is athletic. She can use kind of the muscle through it approach. But Marconetto is really hard to hold down. I've seen her pop back up just about every time she's been taken down without too much trouble. And she does work really well in the clinch. So if Penco wants to get this to the ground, which she may not. She may want to strike with her at range. That's an option. But if she does want to get to the ground, she may end up in the clinch at some point, and that is a problem because Marconetto is very good in that clinch. I might be saying her name wrong. Correct me if I am. I know that it won't help because you'll just be using letters. I don't know. Whatever. I may be saying her name wrong. Bear with me. So anyway, she does work well in the clinch. She won't just let you kind of sit there. She'll work with the work underhooks, or she'll throw elbows, or she'll damage you up and improve her position at the same time. Something that she does that I'm not sure if I like or not. In this matchup, I kind of like it because it'll bring about the in-betweens or the clinch, but I don't like it for her going forward for 2 reasons, and I'll get into that. So what she does is she kind of just ducks her head or her chin like this, and then she just goes forward and throws these punches like this. They're not good punches by any means because she short arms all of her punches, and it drives me crazy. If somebody could teach this girl to throw a good punch, a good full extension punch, get her hip involved, this girl's got a good shot at going somewhere in the future. Like she could be pretty good. But the punches she throws are just like they touch you and they score points, I suppose, because if you're landing shots, obviously you're scoring points. But she just doesn't put anything on them at all. It's like she's trying not to accidentally overextend and be off balance or something, but she does it she really overdoes that, and then she doesn't even extend her arm. They end up with just bent arm punches like this. Kind of like you're just I don't even know. I don't know what she's doing. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. It's rough. But the thing she does is she does press forward with this, getting that head down. She doesn't really take a lot of damage. She'll get some shots, especially against a girl who is really good at range, but when you get in tight with her, she could not. The pretty striking that she has kind of goes out the window a little bit, and then she kind of struggles and looks for the takedown. Like I said, the in-betweens aren't really her strong suit, but they are hers. So in this matchup, we've got our favorite over here in Penco. Okay. I'm going to lean the Marconetto side, and here's why. Not because I necessarily think she's the better fighter, but if you've got favorite odds on Penco, I can't play those odds. If she was the underdog, I would consider it. It's the same on the other side. If she was a favorite, I would not pick her, or I would not play the odds. At the underdog, I'd consider it. She is the underdog, so I will consider it. I probably won't actually make a play on this fight. You're better off leaving it off your cards. It's a tough Bellator matchup between two girls who have not really been tested at a high level at all. So even though you can watch all the fights that they have, you don't really get a great read on either of them, just because their level of competition is so all over the place. But I will take Marconetto here, and if you're a total degenerate and you want to throw a little dinner money on Marconetto, I don't mind it. It ain't bad. She's not bad. Her punches are terrible, but if she can get into the clinch or get those in-betweens, which I think she can just by kind of ducking her head and going forward, because I don't think that Penco can pack enough of a shot. Although her striking is good, I don't think she can pack enough of a shot to shut her down and just keep her at bay. So for me, that's where I'm at on this fight. Let me know what you think. If you think I missed something here, if you think I'm overlooking something, let me know. Do you think the athleticism is going to play a big part in this fight and maybe be able to keep Marconetto down like nobody else has as far as I can tell? Let me know. But let's move on to the next one. Here we have Alfie Davis taking on Thibault Gouti. So in this matchup here, it's kind of an interesting one for me because when I saw the odds for this, I thought they were backwards. So we're going to go into that a little bit. For Gouti, he's 4-1 in his last 5 fights, 3-1 and 1 draw for Davis. So this matchup here is an interesting one because both guys are primarily strikers. Gouti can work the grappling a bit more than Davis. Davis can work off his back all right. He's not bad at it. But I do think this fight should probably take place at striking range. I do think both guys kind of want it there. With that, we have a 2.5-inch reach advantage on the Gouti side. He can use that to his advantage here. The thing that kind of makes that not such a big deal, though, is Davis's best strikes are his kicks. He has really, really solid kicks. If you just look up even a highlight reel of just his kick knockouts or like his kicks in general, they're pretty sweet. Like just you get a good joy out of that. Alfie Davis has some solid kicks. He has an axe kick knockout. I don't remember what promotion it was for or whatever. It's nice. It's over. Oh shoot, I can't remember who it was. Anyway, he has a sick axe kick knockout. It's worth the watch. So with that said, we do have some decent kicks there. His punches are kind of like not that good. I know that I don't mean that they're like really weak when I put weak punches, but they don't put they're not a lot of threat. So if you get hit by them, yeah, it's gonna hurt. It's still a punch in the face or whatever. But yeah, the kicks are the real danger that he has here. So Alfie Davis has some really solid kicks. On the other side, we have some good striking. He also has really good kicks. I wanted to mention that his leg kicks are where it's at, though. On the Davis side, you're going to get more kicks to the head or the body. The leg kicks here on the Gouti side, I like those a little bit more than his other kicks. His punches are good, nice straight shots. Uses that range on his hands pretty well. Doesn't throw a lot of wild stuff. Keeps his guard up high. The classic striker, or like kind of boxer style hands, high guard. Does well. Here's why I thought this was crazy. So when I saw this fight, I thought, okay, 35-year-old, not usually a good sign. Fighting a guy with a decent name like Alfie Davis. Like he's fought some guys now. I thought Alfie Davis would be a slight favorite at least. I'm wrong. Alfie Davis is an underdog. After watching these fights, I think a pretty good fight. I don't think it's going to be, I don't think either guy is just going to be head and shoulders better or above the other one. But if you give me Alfie Davis as an underdog here, that's a playable thing. That's a playable line. I would play that. I'm on Alfie Davis here. Don't get crazy with it. Like I said, it's still a close fight. But Alfie Davis as an underdog, yeah, I like that a lot. That's not a bad pick there. Gouti on the other side, like he still has a reasonable shot, but he is 35 years of age. He, does kind of just plod forward. And if you do that against a guy with kicks like Alfie Davis, you can go to sleep pretty quick. So for me, Davis is the pick. Let me know if you think I'm wrong. Let me know if you think that Gouti's got a great shot here. He may, and I may agree with your point, so I'd love to hear it. But let me know. Let's move on to the next fight. All right, before we get into this fight too much, if you've been here watching this video, enjoying yourself, go ahead and hit like for me. I really appreciate it. It lets me know that you enjoyed this video, but it also helps this video get to more people. It helps this channel grow. If this channel grows, I can keep making videos like this. If I can keep making videos like this, I can keep letting you watch these videos. So that works out, right? If you are new to this channel and you have been enjoying this so far and you'd like to see more breakdowns from myself, I would happily show you them. Might as well hit that subscribe button for me so that way you can continue to see them. But let's not waste any more time. Let's get into this fight here. So we have Simon Biyong, I think is how you say that, taking on Dragos Zubco. Man, there are a lot of names on this that I'm really struggling with. And funny side note here. I used to be the guy watching like people talk about MMA fights, or you hear the commentators on like the UFC or the Bellator or whatever, hear them say their names wrong. And I used to be like, come on, do your job, learn how to say their names. Guys, I'm struggling on this one. I even tried to Google translate some of these or like how to pronounce some of these, and I just still couldn't figure it out. So bear with me on some of the names. But as I was saying, let's get back into this. So Biyong here taking on Zubco. 4-1 on his last 5 for Biyong. 3-1, that's his total MMA record. He does have a kickboxing background, so let's put that in there. So it's not like he's just not been in combat sports. He was in kickboxing prior to MMA. With this one, we have a 6'6", 74-inch reach on the Biyong side, which is a pretty big height and slight reach advantage over Zubco here, who is 6'2" with 72.5-inch reach. That is going to help out a guy that I think is already favored for a good reason, and I'll get into more of that here. The kickboxing background is solid for Zubco, but the problem is he's a kickboxer doing MMA, and it's not like he's a world-class kickboxer. He's an all-right kickboxer. If he sees this video and just thinks I'm a total dick, I'm sorry, dude, but you're just an all-right kickboxer doing MMA. It's just not a good fit. He's done all well so far, but he hasn't really fought anybody that's any good, so that's the problem. On the other side, we've got a guy who I hate the single shot output of him, but his power is there. He's got a great straight right. It'll put you down. When he does put you down and he follows up with some ground and pound, he puts a barrage there. So why he can't do that on the feet, I don't know. It bothers me. But he is a good striker. He does use that height and reach pretty well. When you're 6'6" with a 74-inch reach, I mean, yeah, going against other guys with shorter reaches or like shorter guys, you're going to be punching down most of the time. And I don't know if you guys know this, but it's easier to throw a punch down. I don't know if you can see my arm. It's easier to throw a punch down than up. Because throwing it up, you have less force on it than you do down. And I know that seems silly. And you're like, what? That's not a real thing. Go to a heavy bag. Try to punch towards what you would say is down by a couple of inches here. And then punch to what would be up to someone's face. Because you're already punching up for a face of someone that is your height. So when you're punching up to a guy that is 4 inches taller than you and you're trying to hit him in the face, you lose a lot of power on your shots. So for a guy that's a kickboxer, that ain't good. Against a guy that has some serious power is punching down. It's like riding your bike downhill is a lot easier than riding your bike uphill. Anyway, off my tangent. Something that's really interesting here and can be capitalized by other guys later in his career. I don't think it'll happen in this fight, but it can be done later in his career. What he does is, for Biyong, he comes forward, just paws with his left hand at the opponent, has that right hand right here by the chin, ready to drop that straight right. It works well because nobody knows how to do anything with that pawing front hand, especially with him being so dang tall. That's the problem, though, is he's going to get used to doing that, and then he'll start trying to paw, and before he gets the chance to launch that power, he's going to get put to sleep. However, it won't happen in this matchup. At least that's not what I'm seeing from what I've watched so far. Zubco doesn't have the ability yet to figure out how to get past that lead pawing hand. When someone finally does, it's going to be rough for him. He's going to have to learn a really nice lesson that night. But in this matchup, I do think Biyong's a pretty safe play here. He's already out of playable odds, -4 or something or another. If you want to put like a big old juiced up parlay throughout the card, he's a good piece for that. I do think he gets this win over Zubco pretty easily. Biyong's it's a safe pick. I mean, what we expect, he's a -400 and some odd favorite, so I'm not saying anything crazy. If you think I'm wrong, you think Zubco's a heck of a kickboxer and I've missed something, let me know. Or if you're just a friend of his and you think I'm a dick, let me know as well. Sorry about it. Let's go on to the next fight. Another one. Here we go. We have not even going to try Khamidov. I can't pronounce that, sorry. Versus Jose Maria Tome. I think I got that one pretty close. So anyway, for these two guys here, for Khamidov, he's coming in 5-0 in his last 5 fights because he's 13-0 overall. And rightfully so. The guy's pretty skilled, as we're going to get into here. On the other side, not the best 5 on in. It's 2-2-1 no contest. But the guy has a 40-9 record overall. The guy's got 40 wins. And he's 40 years old, so it makes sense that he's had a long career. But that last 5, it's a little salty. We're going to kind of get into some of this. I kind of break it down a little bit, but that last 5 doesn't really show his body of work. And I wanted to point that out because Tome, that dude's got some good wins, and he's put some streaks together at times. So I do like that, and I do like some things on him. I'm kind of obviously giving away who I think is going to win this fight, but let me break this down for you and kind of give you why, and why I think that Tome shouldn't be totally counted out, but obviously Khamidov is probably going to be my pick. But let's go ahead and get into it. So for Khamidov, the obvious stuff here, the dude's a freaking good wrestler. He uses that wrestling to set up the hands. You're afraid of the takedown. He'll come over the top with the hands. It's not the most beautiful striking, but it gets the job done, especially when his wrestling is such a threat. The dude's got substantially good cardio. He can walk through everything, kind of just keep on coming round after round. He's fought a decent level of competition, too, on the regional scene. So for a guy with a 13-0 record to have some wins over guys that aren't just trash is really good. Also, he's sound defensively. Doesn't take a lot of damage, doesn't get hit a lot. It's exactly what you want from a guy with good wrestling. So he's going up against a guy, though, that actually stylistically, if Tome was a bit younger, would put up a really good a challenging matchup. Let's put it that way. Because maybe Tome still wouldn't win if he was younger, but maybe he would because the way that he fights is tough for a guy like Khamidov. But Khamidov being a much younger fighter, Tome being 40 years old and not looking so good as of late, that's where I kind of get into worrying about him. But he doesn't accept his position. So when you take him down, the guy's constantly moving. He's getting the hips out. A lot of guys, you see them, they get taken down and they, that sigh of like, crap, I'm taken down. And then they start to get work back up. Not Tome. This dude is just active from the bottom, from the time he hits the mat to whether he gets back to his feet, locks his submission, starts damaging you from the bottom. He's throwing elbows at you while he's trying to get his hips out. The dude is hard to hold down, especially when you're not like the top tier kind of grappler. So for Khamidov, he's going to struggle at times against Tome to hold him on the mat. And that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that he does have is really strong. He does come through with some, he'll throw up submissions. Like I said, he can damage you off the back with the elbows. But the fact that he just always is going for something makes it tough because a lot of the times the goal from these high-level, top pressure kind of wrestlers is to hold you down and just kind of suck the life out of you. I don't think you're sucking the life out of Tome unless he's really fallen off a cliff as he's aged. In his last fight even, he was still able to kind of keep that activity going, but his skills are just a little bit slower now than they used to be. Something that's interesting is he does have really unorthodox striking. I gave it kind of the plus-minus here because it's worked. It's wild. The kicks are good. He does a lot of spinning back fists, spinning back kicks, all sorts of kind of stuff. Kind of keeps his hands low and darts in and out. It's worked for him. It's worked well for him in a lot of fights. Obviously, the guy's got 40 wins, so he's doing something right. 9 losses, yes, but I mean, 40-9, still a decent record. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. But yeah, the unorthodox striking, it works for him for a guy that doesn't really care if you take him down because he works so well from there. And that's kind of what happens with this striking with a lot of the spins. You give up the ability to defend the takedown pretty well. So for Tome, the striking works for him, knowing that he can hold his own on the ground really well. Something I thought was really interesting is he's fought Askar Askarov, and he gave him a lot of fits in that matchup. Now, Askar Askarov did get the win in the matchup, but it wasn't like you would expect because Askarov's a top 5 guy in the UFC right now. Tome, obviously not a top 5 guy in the UFC, but he made that fight close. Close, relatively close. Obviously, Askarov was the clear winner, but Tome made him work. Landed some shots on him. Just could not be held down. The guy put forth some serious effort. Now, this was a few years ago. Things change rapidly after you start hitting, mid-30s, late 30s, into 40. It's clear that he's kind of getting towards the end of his career, especially at the lower weight classes like we have here. So for me, Khamidov's the obvious pick. I do think Tome will he's a good matchup for a guy like Khamidov because he'll teach him the things that he needs to learn to avoid or to work against in a matchup against a guy that's not quite as sharp as it used to be. So this is actually going to be a really good matchup for Khamidov to grow and get better. And against a guy like Tome, who is towards the end of his career, it's a good way to kind of get that experience over a guy that got 40 wins in his career. So for me, Khamidov's a good play here. I do like him to win this matchup. Could get caught in something. I don't see it happening. But let me know what you think. I do really like this fight. I think it's going to be a fun one. I do think that that Khamidov's kind of pressure style will actually have to really turn up the gas to hold a guy like Tome down. So I think it'll make it a very exciting fight. Let me know what you think, but let's move on to the next one. We got some good ones coming up. Here we've got Davy Gallen taking on Daniel Scatizzi, who has the worst fighter name ever. His fighter name is Scat. I think that's horrible. Daniel Scatizzi is the worst fighter name ever. But Davy Gallen, 5-0 in his last 5 fights, 3-2 for Scatizzi. In this matchup, I think it's going to be a striking matchup primarily. There will be some clinch work, maybe a couple of takedowns, but it's primarily going to be a striking matchup because I think Davy Gallen's going to be able to control where this fight takes place with his very good yet unconventional striking. His kicks are friggin' wild. The Rolling Thunder KO kick that he has over, I believe it's Ross Pearson, towards the end of Ross Pearson's career, but that is the wildest kick I think I've ever seen at any level outside of just horribly low, like high school gym level MMA. That's the best kick I've seen at even a moderately high level. That Rolling Thunder kick against Ross Pearson. If you haven't seen it, look it up. It's worth a watch. Anyway, back to the breakdown. For Scatizzi, for good old Scat over here, he does have a judo background, and he can use it kind of with the cage push really well. He's going to have a hard time holding Davy Gallen there. Davy Gallen's a hell of a striker. He's also good at resisting those positions. I didn't feel the need to write all that extra stuff out. I'm just going to break it down for you. There's not a whole lot to go on. He's basically just pretty good at keeping the fight where he wants it. With that, Scatizzi does struggle at range. So if he can't use this judo, if he can't use that cage push, he's going to struggle against a guy like Davy Gallen. We saw that in the Alfie Davis fight. Alfie Davis was able to do really well at range against Scatizzi. And that doesn't mean that Scatizzi lost on the feet by any means. Something that he can, this is a pro Anacon because he can strike, but he has to be in the pocket. His boxing isn't bad, but it has to be in close. He has to be in that boxing range, not kickboxing range, not MMA range. Davy Gallen can strike from anywhere, and when he is at range, that striking is gnarly, especially those kicks. I'm going to take Davy Gallen here. I'm pretty confident in it. Davy Gallen's a pretty good fighter. Scatizzi's not bad, don't get me wrong. He's a decent guy, decent fighter. I mean, just when he moves up to the higher levels, I think he's going to struggle with some guys that have good striking at range. Davy Gallen is one of those guys that has really good striking at range, and he can put your lights out from anywhere. So for me, Davy Gallen's a pretty safe pick. I do like it a lot. Anything can happen. It's MMA. But yeah, Davy Gallen, let me know if you think something different. Like this video. See you in the next one. If these guys look in a mirror, there's a chance they see the other guy in there because both guys have a very similar fight style. We have Andrew Fisher taking on Justin Gonzalez. Now, if you might remember Justin Gonzalez from Dana White's Contender Series, had a really impressive win where he laid and prayed his way to a victory, didn't really get hurt at all, threw a couple of hands here and there, but yeah, I mean, it was dominant, but man, was it a snooze fest. In fact, okay, Justin Gonzalez, if you see this video, I am sorry, but this is the absolute 100% truth. I was watching the footage of that fight just last night to make sure I was caught up on everything. I fell asleep in the middle of the second round watching that fight. I've never fallen asleep during a fight before in my life. I'm sure it was the second time I've seen that fight, but man, it was just minutes and minutes of no activity whatsoever. And I swear, I was not tired before I started watching the fight, or at least I didn't feel like I was. But anyway, Justin Gonzalez, he can grind you out. On the other hand, Andrew Fisher, dude's got great top pressure. What is he? He's a grinder. Both guys do really well. On the feet, I do think Fisher does have the better striking. I don't think we're going to see that. I think one guy's going to get on top and try to just aggressively pressure out the other one. Both guys are very aggressive with their takedowns, with their control. Andrew Fisher does, like I said, have a little bit better striking. I don't think he's going to get to use it. I think he's either going to get the takedown himself over Gonzalez, or Gonzalez is going to get the takedown over Fisher. Gonzalez probably has the better ability to get the fight to the mat. Not by a ton, but a little bit. And because of that, I will take Gonzalez in this matchup. Not one that I bet the house on. I do think the odds are a bit skewed. But yeah, Gonzalez, he does have the better ability to take the fight to the mat. Once he gets it there, he's shown that he can just lay there and keep you down. He doesn't do a lot of ground and pound, at least from the fights I've seen. Doesn't do a ton of ground and pound. Doesn't do a ton of striking. He will hold you there, and he'll do it well. I don't want to be too harsh on him. He will ground and pound at times. It's not like he doesn't do anything. But yeah, realistically, he plays a safe game plan. He's going to get that win, and darn it, he'll do it by whatever means he has to. And that typically is using that wrestling, which, good on him. I'm a fan of wrestling. Don't get me wrong. I'm a big fan of wrestling. But, you got to at least do something, advance position. But no, he'll just hang out. But yeah, Justin Gonzalez probably gets the win here, probably by decision. If you can bet the over in this fight, it's probably a pretty good bet. Andrew Fisher, if he gets on top, it's probably a similar thing. I think the over is probably a better bet than picking a side. But if you are picking a side, I'd be on the Gonzalez side. Let's move on to the next fight. Guys, on this one, we have a matchup that looks like on paper we have one side that is very lopsided. But I tell you, this match is closer than the odds and the attributes that I've even put up here suggest. We have Tim Wilde coming in 3-1-1 draw in his last 5 fights, taking on Saul Rogers, who is 3-2 in his last 5. And for Saul Rogers, he's fought the much better level of competition, but Tim Wilde has been around Bellator for a bit now, and he's fought some guys in Bellator, so he's not totally just some bum off the regional scene that they're sending in here for Saul Rogers, who has a decent bit of a name value with his stint in the UFC and the Ultimate Fighter House as well. It's not like they're sending Tim Wilde in there just to lose to this guy. Tim Wilde's not bad. He's not bad at all, and he does have a 3-inch reach advantage, so that is something he can use. But he's going up against a guy who, his wrestling is really, really, it's good enough to do what he needs to do to most guys. He's got wins over high-level jiu-jitsu guys such as Ryan Hall on the Ultimate Fighter House. Like, he's beating guys that he probably shouldn't beat, but his wrestling is good. So he uses that in a way that he can control a guy, keep him down, hit the ground and pound, set up a choke, call it a day. So for Saul Rogers, like I said, he closes the distance really well. He's got solid takedowns. The top pressure is good once he gets there. He has good ground and pound, and it sets up the choke. The choke is pretty darn good. Obviously, he's fought the higher level competition. So for me, Saul Rogers has a hard style to beat. Obviously, he's lost 2 out of his last 5, so it can happen. He's fighting a guy that does have the better striking. Tim Wilde does, especially I would say his striking at full range. He does really well there, and he does have decent takedown defense. I don't think it's going to work against a guy like Saul Rogers, who's really good at the takedowns. But if he can keep it on the feet, if he can somehow do that, if he can keep it on the feet, Tim Wilde's got a really good path to victory here. But I do like Saul Rogers in this matchup. I think he's he's better tested. He's not to the point in his career where I think he's just going downhill hard yet. I do think Saul Rogers will be able to use that takedown in this matchup, and I do think he'll be able to get control. Once he gets the control, that ground and pound is gnarly. He'll be able to hit you with some shots, set up the choke, and that's probably it. If Wilde can survive, I think Saul's going to be able to bank more minutes. So for me, Rogers is probably the guy to take. However, Wilde's got some decent upside if he can keep it on the feet. Those strikes are crisp, and he's fighting a guy that striking is like, definitely not his strong suit. So let me know what you guys think. Do you think Wilde's got a pretty good shot here? Am I crazy to think that he could even keep it on the feet at all? Do you think Saul Rogers just comes through and walks this like it's a walk in the park? If so, let me know. We've got a couple more matchups to get through, so let's move on to them. Here we got a matchup between Fabian Edwards and Charlie Ward. Charlie Ward coming in 4-1 in his last 5 fights. I don't know how. And 3-2 on the Edwards side. Do you guys watch Charlie Ward fights and think, how does this guy keep winning? He doesn't look like he should be winning these fights, but he is. He just keeps beating all these guys. I think it's because Bellator puts him in there with some guys that are kind of like, all right. Because Charlie Ward is quite the character. He's an interesting guy. Give him a microphone. He's going to be fun to talk to, fun to hear from. But man, like they're not doing him any favors here because Fabian Edwards, although he's the worst of the two Edwards brothers, Leon being the welterweight champion over in the UFC, obviously Leon Edwards is the better of the two, which kind of overshadows Fabian. But Fabian Edwards isn't bad. And in this matchup, he does have a 5-inch reach advantage over the shorter Charlie Ward. 5'11", 73.5-inch reach over there for Ward. 6'1" with a 78.5-inch reach for Edwards. That is a big reach advantage. 5 inches. We saw one earlier that was 6 inches. 5 inches is still a massive reach advantage. He's going to be able to hit him from a long distance. We've seen it in many fights before. The guy with a reach advantage that big, especially when they're the more athletic fighter, which Fabian Edwards clearly is. Because Charlie Ward, like, come on, the guy keeps winning fights, but you look at him and you're like, man, this guy's not a freak athlete. Fabian Edwards is the opposite. You look at him and you say, man, this guy is a freak athlete. Charlie Ward is tough, though. The guy is hard to put away. Durable as all heck. So that striking from the Edwards side, he does have really good striking. It's not, like I said, it's not Leon. He's going to continue to get the comparisons forever, but Fabian Edwards has some good striking. Charlie Ward's durable as heck, and if he can weather some shots, get in close enough to drag this fight to the ground, he does have a shot in this matchup. I don't think it's a very good one, but he does have a shot, and that's how we would do it, because he does have solid ground and pound, and he can hit hard. So when he's throwing that ground and pound and laying those shots on you, Fabian Edwards is going to be in trouble if this goes to the mat. Edwards can work some sneaky submissions on the ground, but guess what? It's not going to do anything against a guy like Charlie Ward, who's never heard the word submission in his life. I'm just kidding. That's probably an exaggeration. But Charlie Ward can drop bombs on you from the top. Does not give two craps what you're trying to do off your back. He's just going to hit you until you go out. So Charlie Ward has a path to victory here. I don't see it being a very good path to victory. Fabian Edwards is going to get back on his winning ways. Has a couple of losses. He did get that win recently over Lito Machida, I do believe it was. Yeah, I mean, the guy's over the hill. He's done. So sucks, but it's just the way it is. Fabian Edwards did look good in that matchup, though. So for Edwards, I do think that his crisp striking is going to do a lot of damage to Charlie Ward on the feet. Ward, although durable, is not invincible. So I think Edwards is going to get this one done. I feel pretty good about it. There is a world where Charlie Ward beats Fabian Edwards and it doesn't look close because Edwards throws some shots early on, hits Ward, peppers him up a little bit, but Ward just keeps coming forward. Edwards doesn't really know what to do. He's like, I can't drop this guy. I'm hitting him. I'm circling off. This guy just keeps coming forward. Charlie Ward gets there after 2-3 minutes of just eating shots, gets a hold of Edwards, maybe throws a couple elbows before dragging him to the mat. Drags him to the mat and just clubs the absolute living crap out of the guy. That can happen. The more likely outcome is Edwards just lands a ton of really good shots on the feet, keeps it at range, banks good first, second round easy. Third round, maybe get a scare, but Edwards probably gets it on decision, or just straight knocks Charlie Ward out because his striking is that much better. So for me, I'm taking Edwards here. Don't play the over-under. It could go either way. It's kind of a scary one for me on that. But I'm taking Edwards here. I think he's pretty solid. Obviously, the odds suggest that as well. Let me know what you think. If you're a big Charlie Ward fan, let me know. The guy's he's a likable guy for just being kind of this. He doesn't look like the typical, modern day fighter. He looks like he's still a throwback to a few years, maybe a decade ago. So let me know what you think. We got the main event coming up, so let's get into that one before we go too far on a rambling tangent here. Here we are, the main event of the evening. And before we get into this fight here, if you've made it this far, obviously you're enjoying yourself. What are you doing? Just like the video. It doesn't hurt you. There's not somebody that comes by and says, oh, well, you liked this video. Well, then we're gonna make you watch it over and over again. No, if you like the video, it doesn't hurt you. It just helps me and helps everybody else find this video because that's how the channel grows and that's good stuff. So if you like this video or if you've enjoyed yourself at all, hit like for me. I really appreciate it. And if you'd like to see more of this content, hit subscribe. But now back to the main event. We have Adam Piccolotti taking on Mansour Barnaoui. I think is how you say that. Barnaoui coming in 5-0 in his last 5 fights, 3-2 on the Piccolotti side. The level of competition is a bit higher on the Piccolotti side, so that 3-2 isn't really the whole story compared to the 5-0 on the other side. But we have two primarily grappling-based fighters here. Both guys do want it to go to the mat, so it probably will get there at some point, but how it gets there is going to really change things. Let me explain. For the Piccolotti side, Piccolotti sometimes shoots at range, and that is a big problem. And I don't usually start with the negatives, but we're going to start with one here, because that's a big problem, particularly in this matchup, because he goes going against a guy who, on the feet, does use his range well to keep the fight at range, possibly leading to a shot from range from Piccolotti. And he works in the knees really well. Those knees are a bad thing for Piccolotti because when he throws them, he's not a particularly good striker, but he throws a knee really well. And when he's at the range, it's not good striking by any means. He just keeps it there well, but he works those knees in, and those knees are deadly. And I don't know if you've ever shot a takedown on somebody and they brought that knee up. It doesn't matter if it's good or not. If you run into a knee, it hurts really bad. Probably puts you out of your light. Put your lights out, puts you out for the rest of the fight for sure. So for Barnaoui, the ability to keep the range and make Piccolotti shoot from range, working in those knees, could be a really good path to a knockout for him. Now on the ground, it gets a little bit tricky because Piccolotti is a strong submission specialist, but he does sometimes favor the submission over the position, can result in him getting swept or, losing his spot. That's tough against a guy who has really good sweeps and slick back takes. I feel like I'm giving away my pick here, but Barnaoui's a tough stylistic matchup for Piccolotti. Piccolotti does work his ground and pound well, though, to set up his submissions. I do like that about him. On the feet, he strikes in combination well. He is probably the better striker. There is some really poor head movement on the Barnaoui side. He'll just let you hit him, basically. He'll keep his hands up, but that's, whatever. He's not moving his head. He's kind of like a punching bag with arms. So for Barnaoui, the striking defense isn't great. Just kind of arms up. His striking offense is also not great, except for those knees. Those are good. On the Piccolotti side, he's going to want to get to the ground just like Barnaoui is. So if Piccolotti gets it to the ground in the right way, he has a chance here. Barnaoui's he's a heck of a grappler too, and he can steal that back from you without too much trouble, especially on a guy who's going to be looking for the submissions and not holding down that position. I do like Piccolotti, but not in this matchup. So for me, my pick is Barnaoui. I think he gets it done here. I was surprised to see that he's the favorite, though, because Piccolotti's got a much bigger name. So I don't know who was picking the odds for Bellator, but they got it right. I figured that Barnaoui probably should be a slight favorite. I figured Piccolotti would be a favorite, but nope, I was wrong. So Barnaoui is the favorite. I do like him in this matchup. Yet to be seen whether I think it's worth laying chalk on, but I do like him here. Let me know what you think. This is kind of an interesting card. Not a lot of big names for us here in the States. This card does take place in Italy. I say us here in the States. I know most of my audience is most of my audience is the United States. For me in the United States, it's kind of not a lot of big names. If you're based over in Italy, there's a lot of people that you want to watch, but not a ton of big names. I don't assume a lot of up and comers, but probably some people you really want to watch. If you like this card, let me know if you think it's a good slate of fights, especially if you're not from the United States and you're more familiar with some of these fighters that maybe I'm not as familiar with, that I had to spend a lot more time researching. This card took me forever to research. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you're excited for, who you're excited for, and let me know if you've enjoyed this breakdown. And I will see you on the next video.